Okay, so we'll begin then. Good evening, everyone. So for today's webinar, we have with us Ms. Warisha Taj, and today's webinar is on the mental and psychological and social side of living with IBD. A few months ago, we had done a webinar with Dr. Arshia on the impact of living with IBD on women's health. And a couple of years ago, we had supported another academic thesis which looked at the effects of IBD on women from a mental health perspective. Warisha has recently completed her master's in applied psychology from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And for her thesis, she explored what is the psychosocial effect of living with IBD for all genders. And she herself is a caregiver for someone living with IBD, and that was the motivation behind her work. And as an organization, such kind of academic work means a lot to us because this will help us convince the government and the policymakers that there is a real burden of disease. It's not just like any other disease. So, Warisha, over to you. Please begin your presentation.
All right, thank you so much for introducing. And I'm moving on to the next slide. But before I begin, is everybody comfortable in English?
No, we are
Teja,
little.
can you try the CC button? There would be a captions button, which will give you real-time translation.
It means
If you
just
look, there will be 3 dots in the corner. You are on the phone, right? There will be 3 dots.
okay. Yes.
Yeah, there is captions, no?
In call message, ask GMI settings tools.
There will be CC written on a button, CC.
Yes.
Yes. So set that to your language, then it will show you the captions. Okay, it will translate it.
Okay.
1 second, Varsha, let me mute people. Okay, yeah, and yeah, start your slide.
Yes. So let me give a brief about what this talk is going to be about. I'm going to discuss what we found in my research and what it means for you and what all things might help us, and just having a sense that whatever you're feeling, that whatever you are experiencing, you're not alone and it is a shared experience. So it's very real and it's very valid. Usually when we talk about IBD, we usually talk about symptoms, we talk about medications, we talk about lab reports, right? But do we really get to talk about the emotional weight, the daily struggles, and the fact that we usually don't talk about with others, which do not come up in lab report as well, but those are equally real? Today's webinar is going to be about all those things. As mentioned, this webinar basically comes from a research that I did, and it was a mixed methods research, which basically means that it has both numbers for generalization and also experiences that people shared through extensive interviews. Now coming to finding 1, the first finding was that mental burden is bigger than the physical burden, and it is a very interesting finding, and also that it is very similar to the findings which were in researches done abroad. In India, we have very few research which actually talks about the psychosocial burden of IBD. There is extensive literature on managing symptoms, on what to do, what not to do, but there is very few literature that actually talk about the psychosocial burden of it. In my findings, it was I got to know that the mental health burden is bigger than the physical burden. What does it mean? It basically means that people with IBD had almost twice as many anxious days as physically sick days. So, in a 1 month period, people have reported on an average that they have felt anxious for more than 15 days, which means more than half of the month they have been anxious. It can be either about symptoms returning, or about going out, engaging in social situations, many aspects of their life they have spent worrying about. Then the second thing which we found was that people have, so all of these things were reported by people according to what they have gone through. It is very subjective. The people have also reported that for about 13 days they have felt depressed, which means that they have felt hopeless, they have felt sad, they have felt like things are not getting better, things will not get better. They felt not they have felt like they don't want to go out, they don't want to engage with people. That is what basically summarizes depressed days. Then as you can see, all of these anxious days, depressed days, mentally unhealthy days, all of these days were way more than the physically sick days. So the physically sick days was on an average 8 days a month, which basically means 2 days a week. People have actually had extreme symptoms. However, the time which was spent ruminating about what may happen, or feeling low because of the condition, or not being able to engage was much higher. And it is a very important finding, because sometimes we just reduce the experience to whatever is happening in terms of symptoms, but it is way more than that. And this is a proof why we need to talk about psychological burden, why we need to talk about the social aspect of the condition. Now, coming to the next slide, what does this actually mean for you? It means that IBD is not just some gastrointestinal problem. It consists of a large variety of things. For example, low mood, exhaustion, weakness. Sometimes people have reported overthinking or ruminating about what will happen. And the research shows that it is real, it is measurable, and it happens to people. Also, sometimes when people just talk about you have to just be positive, think positive. The thing is that it is not actually so small. The experience is really embedded in your everyday life. And coming to my next finding, what the title is believing in yourself changes everything. And it is not some fake positive slogan that I'm trying to put forward. Basically, in my research, I tried to find if there is any correlation between self-efficacy and health-related quality of life. First, what is quality of life? Quality of life means that the number of days in which a person has felt subjective well-being, which means that they have felt satisfied, they were able to meaningfully engage in activities, they were able to feel psychological wellness. And in chronic illness, sometimes quality of life gets extensively disrupted. So I wanted to find what all things can actually improve quality of life of people. One of the major findings was self-efficacy can really improve the way people perceive their illness. Self-efficacy means how much you believe that you can manage your condition on a day-to-day basis. Self-efficacy does not mean that, okay, I can magically cure something, or something will just be better. It is not about it is not about unreal expectations, but it is about how whatever is happening on a day-to-day basis, you can manage it. It does not mean feeling perfect. It means that you are just able to handle on a day-to-day basis the little stressors which come your way. And there are a lot of numbers on the screen right now. I will explain what those mean. It was found that people who have higher self-efficacy, which means that people who believe, I'm sorry, is there any message?
Dharmendra ji, we'll take all questions after the presentation. You can continue, Warisha.
Okay, so I'm continuing. Right. Yes. So it was found that people who had higher self-efficacy, which means that people who believe they can manage their day-to-day conditions, or who felt in control, who had a little sense of control, they reported fewer depressed days. which means more the self-efficacy, lesser the number of depressed days that they experience. And it was one of the strongest findings in our study. Apart from that, even when it comes to anxious days, which means days when you are feeling that you don't know what will happen, you're feeling worried about things which are not in your near vicinity. Even those things, if you have greater self efficacy, which means if you believe that you can manage your conditions, you have control over things, it significantly reduces the number of anxious days. And also, it was reported that fewer mentally unhealthy days were present in people who had higher self-efficacy, and so was related to energetic days. How this finding was derived was from, we used HRQOL. It is a health-related quality of life questionnaire, and we correlated that with two other measures, one of which was self-efficacy. And it was found that people who had greater self-efficacy had lower psychological burden. And the interesting thing is self-efficacy is something which is not a trait. It is something that people can build. They can build it either through therapy or through just educating themselves or finding their own patterns, talking to people, seeking peer support, or reading and learning about people who are managing their condition well, so that they can have a feeling that, okay, this can be managed. And it is one of the most hopeful findings that I had in my research. The next finding was who around you matters, but it is not simple. It was found that the biggest support for people was coming from their family or their partners, followed by least support from their friends. And there is a reason for it too. It was also found that many people were also living in family context, and they were living with family so that their symptoms can be managed. And somewhere that finding is related to this, that parents, especially mothers or the primary caregiver, was central to the experience of IBD, because a lot of food related restriction, a lot of appointment related things, all of these were managed by the primary caregiver, which in this context usually becomes the family. Also, it was found that social support is also related to quality of life. When it comes to social support, it is very important. Even if family is the biggest source of support, sometimes family is also a place from where advice is like, don't tell about this to others, or don't reveal this condition in your workplace. These advices were coming. On the left hand side, you can see that there are some numbers. I will explain what it means. The numbers showed that the more social support a person had, they had fewer mentally unhealthy days. And they had also lower activity limitation, they had fewer depressed days, they had fewer anxious days, and they had better sleep. Now, these are not just things that I am saying based on pattern. It is recorded in numbers that this happens, and this is very crucial. Now, again, social support is also something which can be built gradually. It can be either through reaching out to these groups, like the social support group which IBD India runs, or reaching out to a professional, or simply finding a friend circle where people are more understanding. And complicated part is that at the end of the day, most people still find family as their major source of support. And when it comes to friendship, it is not like friends don't care, but it is the thing is that people with IBD often tell their friends because they fear judgment, they fear jokes, they fear pity. They're afraid what will happen if they talk about it, how much they have to talk about it. So there is an avoidance that they try to avoid disclosing the condition. Now, coming to the qualitative part, the lived experience part of my research, what I found was that IBD touches every single part of your life. It is not just the symptom, but it is everything around it. Your food becomes stressful. So let us dive into some of the things that our participants told us. Firstly, food becomes very stressful, and food is something which is an integral part of our everyday life. When that becomes stressful, we don't know how to manage things surrounding it. For example, somebody said that तुम चाय नहीं पी सकते हो, तुम दूध नहीं पी सकते हो, रोटी नहीं खा सकते हो. And all of these things are very automatic and it becomes a part of our daily life without even us knowing. So the ordinary things become off limits, and then because of that, they feel that urge to skip social meals. Like sometimes when in college, people go out to have something, to have tea, to have these basic things. Now they are missing on those aspects of their life where they can go out and engage in such social meals, which is also a source of enhancing their social circle. So a food restriction is also leading to social life restriction. Secondly, anxiety and low mood are constant, as discussed before. One of the participants also explained how, for this particular participant, there was a cycle that whenever they would get stressed, there would be more blood in their stool. And when, because of that more blood, they will get more stressed, and that cycle would keep on maintaining. It is something which is very personal to their experience, but what it also indicates that there is a mind and body feedback loop. When the stress worsens for some people, they may also see an increase in symptoms. However, it is not a generalized finding. It is all of these findings are very personal to people. And finally, the social life shrinks quietly. There is talking about anxiety and social life. People fear sudden urgency. People fear dietary restrictions at gatherings, having to answer people, and sometimes people not understanding and trying to convince them that it's okay, just have a little bite, and it's disrupting with their diet. So the social life of a person, it starts shrinking. They need to know where they are going, if there is a bathroom available over there, if and all of these things, the anxiety surrounding it pulls people away from their social world. And that is also one of the reasons that people might feel depressed on the usual days, because suddenly there is a shrinkage of their social life. One of the verbatim of our participants is, I just don't go anymore. And it is a sentence that many people with IBD say that, okay, I don't go there anymore. I don't want to go there. Uh, I don't want to think about how to manage everything when I go there. So it's easier to be at home. And this is not really introversion. This is the way they are trying to manage their IBD. And education and career are reshaped. This is very important, mainly because I have also been thinking about how somewhere this condition is very disabling. People have reported missed exams. They have reported about dropping out from courses. They have talked about avoiding hostels, because in hostels there would be again the food related issues. A lot of people opt for colleges which are either in their hometown, so that they can get homemade meals, or either they shift along with their family so that the food aspect can be taken care of. So sometimes it leads to decisions which may even impact their career related trajectory. They might get a good college, but they're not able to go there because they also have to manage this condition. Sometimes, so a lot of participants were also diagnosed when they were in school. And what happened was that because of that, they had years and years of missed schooling education. They would just go for exams and then they were not able to attend classes because of being sick. And because of that, what they will do in future, how they want to plan their career, all of those things got reshaped. Some of them were in class 10, some of them were in class 12, some of them were literally in class 4 and 5. And the experience starting at that age really reshaped how they wanted to look at their life, what they wanted to do career wise. And people would often choose the safer option close to home. Again, this also implicates why family is one of the major sources of support. And it also changed what people thought for themselves. And these are not personal setbacks. It is not like, okay, motivate someone and they will get over it. It's not something like that. It is the consequence of the illness. It is not something that people are choosing. And it is not something which should be minimized. Talking about stigma, what I found was stigma runs really deep, especially in India. And people have talked about a cycle here also. I was talking about a verbatim. Somebody has said, a participant has said that बात करने में डाउट आ जाता है कि क्यों बताना, लोग मजाक उड़ाएंगे. The thing is that it also highlights that there is significant unawareness among people, that they don't know about this condition. So they think that, okay, gastrointestinal issue, I will talk about, people will either make fun or give some advice, and or either they will pity them, and none of it is something that anybody wants, right? So, talking about the stigma cycle, what is happening is that others don't understand IBD, and the person who has this condition, they either feel embarrassed or they either feel scared or ashamed to talk about it. So it is called internalized stigma when people start feeling within themselves that they don't want to talk about it. They start having that hesitation. And then they stop telling people. And when they stop telling people, there is also anticipatory stigma, right? Because they feel that if I say something will happen, if I say they will do this. So they're anticipating that something bad will happen. And because of that, less support is reaching them. So their isolation is increasing. And also the misunderstanding will continue because if they're not reaching out, if they're not talking to people, they will keep feeling that if they say something that will happen, other people will not get aware about the condition. So the cycle keeps on continuing on its own. There are four types of stigma that people experience. One was enacted stigma. Mainly it happened among people who got diagnosed when they were a kid, when they were in school, because they were jokes, they were pity, like people were pitying them ki "Bechara, kya ho gaya?" Yeah, they were being told or they were given karmic explanations that may be some pichle paap or something. Or simply people minimize the condition. One thing about IBD is that it is a hidden condition. So sometimes people don't want to believe how serious, how um, hard this condition may feel to someone who is experiencing it, right? Uh, for example, a person sitting in a room, nobody will know that person has IBD. So when they talk about their discomfort, it becomes very hard for people to relate to them. They feel that अच्छा यही तो हो रहा है कोई बात नहीं. So there is this minimization which is there prevalent. Then next is internalized stigma, where a person is feeling embarrassed of their own symptoms. They're hiding them. They're scared that it should not be talked about. It should not be said out loud. And then there is anticipatory stigma, which is also fueling internalized stigma. All these stigmas are actually interrelated. In anticipatory stigma, people are staying quiet and they're not talking about their conditions. They are not revealing this condition in their workplace, fearing that what if they do not get hired? What if they start being treated differently? What if people start doubting their efficacy? So, all these things, and also around marriage related concerns, people do fear anticipatory stigma. It also comes under socio-familiar thing where around marriage there is a pressure to conceal the illness and basically go about it. I would like to come back to a previous slide. Other aspects of the experience also includes misdiagnosis. Every single participant has reported a misdiagnosis to me earlier, and then they also talked about incorrect medication. And it is very interesting because misdiagnosis comes from somebody, either the doctor or the patient or those around, minimizing the symptom severity. It was found that sometimes when people, even when they had very severe conditions, very severe, for example, they have had diarrhea which was not going away, they would still not seek a gastroenterologist. They would first go to some uh, normal doctor, MBBS, and then they would sometimes have misdiagnosis. They were given antibiotics, they were given uh, tuberculosis medication. So it was something which was very integral to the initial diagnostic experience that people were getting misdiagnosis and they were given incorrect medication. And I think somewhere it is also coming from the unawareness which is prevalent among people. People do not know that this condition exists. And what we do is anytime we have anything, any stomach issue, we simply feel that okay, it's just an upset stomach, okay, we are not eating well, maybe. So it is delaying the help seeking process, which is sometimes making the condition more severe before proper help is found by those people. And also there is extreme financial burden. Sometimes what happens is people who are living in village, people who do not have good gastroenterologists in their area, they have to travel a lot. And because of that travel, their work is getting disrupted, their study is getting disrupted. They are having to go to different places, they are having to take leaves, they are having to buy tickets to travel from one place to another just to seek treatment. Now, the very integral part is sometimes it changes who you think you are. It has an impact on a person's identity, their sense of self. most of the participants talked about before IBD and after IBD how they view themselves. And sometimes they would use words like I was when I was normal or back when I was normal. And there was a very prevalent sense of okay, there is something about me which is not normal now. So there is a very evident identity disruption which is taking place in people who are suffering from IBD. Also, there is this thing that there is most of the people do have very evident weight loss, and it is also creating body image related issues. A lot of times, the medications that which are given, or simply the as an extension of the symptom, weight loss is very prevalent, and it is also a concern for major body image issues. It's not about that okay, as a symptom somebody is losing weight. It is also about because of that their confidence is dropping. They used to see themselves as in a particular lens, and now the body is changing. So they are also having to take time to process that aspect of their life, how they are dressing up, like whether they are changing the way they are dressing to either conceal it or find a new way of dressing up. All of these things are also coming under the experience of IBD. Because body is the first thing that a person sees when they want to think about themselves, right? And when the very body is changing, it becomes very crucial that they find a way to adjust around that aspect of their identity. Major body related concerns were reported by the participants, and then hence it leads to reduced confidence in studies, career, relationships. They feel like they are less capable than before, and it also shows in them not wanting to participate in classroom activities. For example, they don't want to draw attention on themselves because they are feeling self-conscious, and they feel like they are the sick one. Okay, so the sick one is a verbatim. It was used by one of the participants, but it also shows how identity is getting disrupted because of this condition. And also, when others treat you with pity, every single participant has told me that how they do not like people feeling pity for them. What they want is understanding, what they want is awareness, what they don't want is pity, what they don't want is people feeling sorry. And then there is evident anxiety about disclosure in romantic context, especially around arranged marriage context in India. However, having said all of these things, one thing which really was highlighted in my research was that resilience was something which always showed up. Every single participant reported how they were able to manage it, what new meaning did they find, what new experiences they had because of this. Some of the verbatims are on the screen. One participant told me that Crohn's in their life is teaching them something because it's making them look into things that they would not have otherwise. And people also gradually developed confidence in managing flares. So what happened was initially it was very difficult for people, but eventually that sense, at the start of this, I talked about self-efficacy. It was shown that after some time, the self-efficacy automatically developed too. So people showed confidence in managing flares. They talked about hard moments and how those moments were the proof that they could handle it. And then some people got engaged in yoga, spirituality, reading, hobbies, anything that provided an alternate sense of meaning for them. I remember one participant talked about how they see IBD not as their complete identity. They see it just as a disease which they have, but also there are different aspects that they try to engage in through a problem-focused lens. Now, people initially when they get the diagnosis, they have this prevalent why me confusion. They really feel that it is unfair. They want to know why it is only them. Why did they get this diagnosis? Why not others? And from that, there is a gradual movement towards being expert of their own body. For example, right now, I know that many of you know a lot of medical terms, a lot of reasons behind why something is happening. The thing is that people really educate themselves about why this condition is happening, what is leading to what medications are there, what treatments are there. And the shift from why me to actually educating themselves about the condition to a point where they feel like an expert. It is something which really helps them manage their condition better. And also, many people did say that connecting with community like IBD India that have provided a platform, it reduced their isolation. For example, some people used to go to Reddit, or they used to go and search for YouTube influencers who had this condition just to find a connection, just to feel that there are more people who have the same condition. Sometimes in a classroom context, in a work context, they may not even find one person with this condition. And they felt very isolated. They felt like they don't have anybody to talk about this. They felt like they had nobody who can feel relatable uh, for this condition. And so this or any type of support group is actually bridging that gap. It is bringing people who have similar experiences together so that they don't have to feel that like they're the only one who are going through this. So resilience really showed up in every single person, the way they gave meaning to their experiences, the way they managed their condition. But before I go to the next slide, I also want to talk about what I'm talking in this webinar are things which were still somewhat generalizable, somewhat shared experience. But one striking thing is that every person has a very unique experience with IBD, and it is related to where they are, in which area they live, what is the healthcare facility there, or what is the family situation like, in which developmental age they are, if they are a teenager, if they are children, if they are in middle age. All of these factors actually contribute to a very unique experience of IBD for each and every one. So there is no one thing fits all concept going on here. For example, somebody who has parental responsibilities, their experience will be very different from somebody who is in school, and they're very different from somebody who is in college. So every person's experience also varies along with their context. So what can actually help? We have talked about what is going on. We have talked about how it's not just your uh, gut which is impacted. It is how it's also impacting your social circle, psychological well-being. So what can actually help? First things first, it is important for people to develop self-efficacy. But how do we develop self-efficacy? So self-efficacy is not about feeling confident that confident like, okay, this condition is very small, I can just get over it. Self-efficacy is not that. Self-efficacy is basically even trying to find smallest manageable challenge. It does not have to be a very big thing that you have to manage on your own, but even small tasks. For example, a small aspect is getting disrupted and finding a way to manage that thing. For example, if okay, while discussing, I'll talk to you with to discuss examples. But the main thing is that having even small things that can be managed can help build self-efficacy. It can be like trying to understand your own pattern, trying to understand, okay, I have tried this particular food and it's not working. It's not working well. So if I avoid this, I may avoid flare up. So these are very, very small things, but it can really help your self-efficacy because it the control that you feel you have over the condition. And each time you manage a hard day, it is a evidence that you can deal with it, and not in a minimizing way that it's a hard day and you have dealt with it, but in a very proof that you have the resources, you have the coping mechanisms that you can revisit when a situation like this comes again. So it is just to have that feeling that you have the resources which is a hard day. And peer support can really help people. There is a community which is discussing the same, at least somewhat similar difficulties, and having that shared sense of going through it together. Again, talking to someone selectively and safely can really help. You don't owe anyone your diagnosis. You don't have to tell everybody that you have the condition. You don't have to disclose to people when you're not feeling confident. But still, we can talk about the emotional aspects of our life. We can talk about that, okay, I am feeling this. One thing I've noticed that when it comes to this condition, people are very hesitant to talk about the emotional aspects of it. It is really impacting the emotional life of a person. It is really disrupting one's social life. But when it comes to talking about this condition, people usually talk about symptoms, medications, lab reports, and not really okay. But how are they actually? What they are feeling? What they are going through? How can somebody help them? And having even two people who truly understand can really bring up that social support. And this community can be a place. I've seen the general chat where people often share their experiences and have that feeling of togetherness. However, therapy may also help some people who are having a hard time processing things. Then in this third box, there are some therapy-based things which works for people. It can be CBT, ACT. It's not. I will not be discussing those in detail here. However, mindfulness related things can really help, and mindfulness exercises are very brief exercises which can help people calm down their nervous system when they're anxious or simply break the overthinking pattern of thought. Finally, asking for support in a way that people can give is very essential. Sometimes people, like, what is happening is, if somebody is suffering from IBD, they may feel that others don't understand, and it is true. There is lack of awareness. They do not understand. That is why it becomes essential that they ask for help in a way that can actually benefit them. For example, telling people what kind of support you want. You can say that I don't need advice, I just wanted somebody to listen. Or when I talk to you, I don't want you to tell me what to do, I just want you to be with me. Or educate people with simple information like whatever they need to know. You don't have to go and share details that you don't want to share, but things that you feel that it will help you if they know about it. And then family education becomes very important. Now, for the family members and for the people who have somebody they're caring for who has this condition, based on what participants said that they needed more, it was that they do not need pity, they do not need advice. They just wanted their experience being validated. They wanted to be believed and treated as capable. I will give you an example. Sometimes what happens is, some people have shared that there was a sense of distrust when they would report their symptoms to somebody they trust. For example, it might get interpreted as that they are just being lazy, or they don't want to work, they are just being. Some of them were children, so okay, it's just an excuse to not go to school. So as a family member, one thing which is very important is to just trust the person you are with. Do not treat them, do not try to find evidence whether what they're saying is true or not, because what is going inside somebody's body, there is no possible way you can find evidence for that, and it may lead to them fearing talking about those things. Some of the examples are here. For example, instead of giving advices, you should eat this, you should eat that, this will help. What people can do is simply ask, what kind of support do you need right now? Do you want some space? Do you want somebody to just be there? Do you want help with managing something that you are feeling difficulty with? That approach can help build communication that, okay, this is what is required right now, instead of just bombarding somebody with advice which may or may not work. What a person is going through, it is their individual experience, and as someone who has not experienced it, you may not always know which advice will work for them because you are not experiencing it. Then it is important that you let them know that you believe in them, even if you can't see what they are going through, if you can't know how fatigue, if they are feeling that fatigue, still believing in them is essential. Labeling them as lazy or not wanting to work or not wanting to go to school people are already going through so much, and it is the added burden to prove themselves to people who love them the most. So avoid things like you look fine or just push through this, it's okay, do it. Avoid those things, because on some days we all need break. And also another thing is, if you're a family member, you can sometimes say no to gatherings without explaining why not. If your child does not want to go, or if somebody who is very close to you, they don't want to go because of whatever reasons, you don't have to explain to them why or why not, or you don't have to force the person to come. There is a reason they say no. And if you're someone who falls under the relative group of that person. Avoid saying things like it's okay, एक दिन खा लो, एक बार में कुछ नहीं होता है. I know your intentions are good, you want them to feel included, but you don't understand, and we don't understand the experience of having a flare up, right? And their avoidance has a is because of a dietary restriction. It helps them get better, and we cannot minimize that thing by saying things like कि एक दिन में कुछ नहीं होता है, because those things are an additional pressure on them. And to avoid that pressure, they start avoiding social gatherings. You know, the people will ask me to eat and I can't eat that, so I will have to say no and it will be weird, so I will just not go. Right. And finally, it is important that you also learn about this condition, because not everything can be explained. Sometimes you really have to find things out. Sometimes you really have to read about it. Avoid labeling. Sometimes when we all want reasons of why something is happening, but not every time we can attribute it to things which just makes a person feel guilty for no reason. I mean, if there is a person who is going through something, and when you come up with reasons which are not grounded in that much scientific evidence, like पिछले जन्म का पाप or किस्मत खराब है or anything on which that individual does not have a control over, it can make them feel more have I done or how to control it. If this is the reason, it is not in my control, how do I control it? Right? So although your intention would be to find reasons, it may actually cause more harm than help for people who are going through this condition. Now talking about, I think this is the last but one slide, what needs to change for everyone, and that is why this research I basically did. In terms of, and also this is the implications of my research. In terms of clinical care, teen mental health screening for anxiety and depression should be done in every IBD clinic visit because it is very prevalent among people. Therapy and psychoeducation should be a part of IBD treatment. For example, either in a way that it's embedded with the GI clinics and healthcare providers, the doctors, to acknowledge the invisible side of IBD. A person will ask you a lot of questions and you need to be there to answer them, because if people are relatively unaware about this condition, and as a healthcare professional, you need to be there for them in a patient-centric way. You cannot just be like, okay, this is happening, have this, and not really talk about what is happening. So patient-centered care becomes very crucial in conditions like these. In terms of community, spaces like IBD India are already doing a great work, because every participant who might talk via this group, they all reported that having more people to talk about this condition really helped them. And some of them said that during their time, this community was not there. But now that it is there, they're actively trying to help those who are new to this, who are newly diagnosed or who are going through things. They're really out there for each other. I mean, earlier they had to go to Reddit to read about experiences so that they feel that somebody out there is experiencing the same thing. In community, family-based psychoeducation on diet, stigma, and emotional support is also very important, because, as I said, that it is not an individual experience, it is a systemic experience. Every person involved around will be in some way or other impacting the person and will be impacted because of this. And reducing social pressure, normalizing dietary limitations, bathroom needs, I think all of these things are very essential, because we want to create an environment where everybody can thrive. Public awareness that separates empathy from pity is very important. Many people have talked about involving media in it, either newspaper or, how when we say diabetes, when somebody says that, okay, I cannot have sugar, I have diabetes, we all know, because there is awareness around it. The media has covered it, people talk about it. Having awareness where people know that, okay, if a person is having this and they're saying no, it is because of this. That basic awareness is very essential right now. And in terms of policy level changes, I think IBD should be recognized as having significant psychosocial burden, not just physical. And workplace flexibility should be considered for people who have this condition. I mean, rigid schedules or having to abide by certain things may actually worsen the limitation, because in an example given by a participant, they said that if I have a flexible schedule, if I am allowed to just complete my work, whatever is there, maybe on a run on a Sunday, I may be feeling better, I may be feeling energized, I may not be having a flare up, so I may be able to work on that day. But if on Monday I have an onset of flare, uh, what would I do? I won't be able to work on that particular day. But then there are days when I can work better than those days. So I believe that workplace flexibility is an area where we can really work forward for people who have this condition. And government-backed awareness campaigns is very much required to reduce the stigma. I mean, only if on a large scale, people talk about it, then only it will be able to reach to everyone. There are many people who do not know what IBD is. And by many, I used to be one of those people. I had no idea what IBD was. So I believe that creating awareness is very essential and involving larger policymakers in it is very essential. And mental health professionals should be integrated in gastro clinics to reduce the overall burden that this experience of having IBD brings. So finally, I just want to say you can ask for help. Living with this condition is a lot, and research shows that you're not too sensitive, you're not overreacting, and you are dealing with something that is genuinely difficult. Therapy works for IBD, psychoeducation helps, and community. Even if you don't want to get into therapy and psychoeducation feels like a lot, having a community can really help you. Bringing people who you know have this condition into that community can help them because it is people having a shared sense of experience and being around people who get it, to whom you don't have to explain what all of it means, with whom you know that even if you talk about this, they will relate to it, can add, reduce the overall social burden that it brings. And obviously, there will be things which will not be under your control, but then there are things which are under your control. And for now, we need to work on things that are on that we may have some control over. With that, I just want to end with a note that IBD is hard in ways that are not visible to most people around you. And the research in this talk confirms what you already know. I know that everything that I talked about, it is something that you know, it is something that you have experienced, it is something which is not very new or alien to you, and that this condition touches everything. The fact that you are building a life, that you have found a way to cope with it, it brings about so much strength in you, and you're not behind, you're not weak, you're dealing with something genuinely difficult, and you deserve care that acknowledges that. Finally, to summarize everything that I discussed here, IBD is as much psychological, sometimes it has more psychological burden than physical. Self-efficacy and social support can really help, can act as protective factors. It can help you reduce the overall burden of the disease. It may not help you with your physical symptoms, but it may help you on the larger aspects of the areas where IBD impacts you. And it is a holistic care, mind, body together, and the cycle of can be interrupted through awareness. With that, thank you so much, and special thanks to IBD India and each and every participant. Research because of you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Varisha. I definitely related to a lot of the points that came out of your research. And I hope, I think others would have also done the same. So, yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for answering that. And yeah, thank you so much for the presentation and the webinar. And I hope everyone who listened to it had something that they could relate to. And we'll gather all the resources from Varisha and we'll circulate that in our community. And yeah, so this is the end of the webinar. Good evening, everyone. Have a good day. And yeah, bye.